I found the camera at an estate sale in Millfield, tucked away in a weathered leather case beneath a table of antiques. The elderly woman running the sale couldn't tell me much about it, just that it had belonged to her brother, a once renowned photographer who'd become reclusive in his final years. "Take it," she said, pushing away the 20 I offered. Howard would want it used, not collecting dust. The camera was a vintage Graflex, heavier than modern equipment, with a beautiful brass lens that caught the light when I lifted it from its case. A small brass plate on the bottom was engraved with the initials HM and the words "See What I See." Photography had been my hobby for years, but lately my work felt uninspired. I hoped this antique would reinvigorate my passion. That night, I cleaned it carefully, replaced the ancient film with a modern equivalent I'd adapted to fit, and set it on my desk before going to bed that I dreamt of the camera. In my dream, I was looking through its viewfinder at an empty room I didn't recognize. As I watched, a figure slowly walked into frame, a tall, gaunt man with eyes that seemed too deep-set, his movements oddly jerky. He looked directly at me and smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too numerous for a human mouth. That I woke with a start at 3:17 a.m., sweat-soaked and heart-racing. My bedroom door was open, though I distinctly remembered closing it before sleep. Stranger still, the camera now sat on my nightstand, though I was certain I'd left it on my desk. Sleep evaded me the rest of the night. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd sleepwalked, moved the camera myself. To shake off my unease, I took the Graflex to the park, thinking some landscape photography might clear my mind. The viewfinder showed everything in crisp detail. I snapped several shots of an old oak tree, enjoying the mechanical click and whir of the antique device. But when I looked through the viewfinder at a children's playground, I froze. The playground was empty in reality, but through the lens, I could see children playing, their movements too fluid, their laughter silent, their faces blurred as if smeared by a painter's brush that I pulled back, blinking rapidly. When I looked again with my naked eye, the playground remained empty. Through the viewfinder, the strange children continued their play, unaware of my observation, why hands trembled as I packed up the camera. That night, I developed the film in my home darkroom. The landscapes came out beautifully, capturing light in ways my digital camera never could. But the playground photo showed only empty swings and slides. No children. I should have gotten rid of the camera then. Instead, I became obsessed. Each day, I took more photos, and each day, the discrepancies between what I saw through the viewfinder and what appeared in the developed pictures grew more disturbing. Through the lens, I saw people who weren't there standing behind actual subjects. In my bedroom, the viewfinder revealed handprints on the walls that weren't visible to the naked eye. When I photographed my bathroom mirror, the reflection showed someone else's face, hollow-cheeked and grinning, where mine should have been. Yet the developed photos never captured these anomalies. They showed only normal scenes, making me question my sanity. That a week after finding the camera, I dream again of the gaunt man. This time, he was closer to the viewfinder, his too wide smile stretching impossibly further. "Do you see what I see now?" he asked, his voice like gravel being crushed. I woke to find myself standing in my living room, the camera in my hands, pointed at the dark window where my reflection should have been. Instead, I saw only the gaunt man staring back, his hand raised as if in greeting. Determined to end whatever madness had taken hold, I researched Howard Miller, the camera's previous owner. News archives revealed he'd been a crime scene photographer for decades before his abrupt retirement. His final assignment had been documenting a series of ritualistic murders. The killer was never caught, but Howard quit the next day and became a recluse. The last article I found was Howard's obituary. He'd died by suicide, leaving a note that read only, "I can't stop seeing them." That night, I placed the camera in its case, intending to bury it far from my home. But as I closed the lid, I heard a distinct click and whir, the sound of the shutter firing on its own. Sleep came unexpectedly, and with it the dream. The gaunt man stood so close to the viewfinder that only his eyes and stretched smile were visible. "You can't give it back now," he whispered. "You've looked too long. You're part of the frame." I jolted awake to find myself in an unfamiliar room with peeling wallpaper and water stains on the ceiling. The camera sat on a tripod opposite the bed, its lens aimed directly at me. I tried to move, but couldn't, my limbs responding only with weak twitches that the shadow moved at the edge of my vision. The gaunt man circled into view, no longer confined to the viewfinder. He looked more substantial now, more real, while I felt increasingly insubstantial. Every photograph takes something from its subject, he explained, his voice suddenly clear. A moment, a memory, a sliver of soul. This camera just takes more than most. He gestured to the walls, which I now saw were covered with photographs. Hundreds of them, each showing a different person. Some were screaming, some weeping, others staring with empty resignation. Howard thought he could stop by breaking the cycle, but the camera always finds a new operator. He lifted the Graflex from its tripod. Your turn is over. Time to find the next photographer. I tried to speak, to beg, but my voice had gone as numb as my limbs. The man raised the camera to his eye and pointed it at me. Smile, he said. You'll be in this collection forever. The shutter clicked. Darkness fell. Sometimes I think I'm still in that room. Other times I feel spread thin across countless moments, watching through a brass lens as new hands lift the camera, as new eyes widen at what they see through the viewfinder. And sometimes when someone looks too long at a photograph, I can almost remember what it felt like to behold it if you find an old Graflex with the initials HM at an estate sale. Leave it where it lies. Some things are never truly yours to own. Sometimes they're just waiting to own you.